I'm Simon Dickinson. I'm the Clinical Director here at TaylorMade. We are a foot orthosis company who have existed in the United Kingdom for many years and have spent the last 4 years developing an innovative new range of products on our new brand KinetiX. KinetiX is different. KinetiX is designed to try to give clinicians choice without the need for adjusting their orthosis while they're in clinic to deal with the vast majority of pathologies that present themselves to a healthcare professional. This innovative range has been designed utilising the latest evidence and theory to provide 5 unique treatment solutions in terms of prescription. Each prescription has a unique design with integrated wedges and corrections in order to provide the appropriate force to deliver a successful outcome for patients with the vast majority of pathology that is presenting in clinic. This range is available in adults and children's sizes and can be provided immediately, reducing the need for custom orthoses while still delivering exceptional results. So how do insoles or foot orthoses actually work? If you Google how do foot orthoses work, you'll be amazed by some of the results, particularly when you get to the bottom of page 1. There are some interesting claims through media marketing that explain how they perceive or believe an insole works, but how does it really work? The original belief and paradigm, which came out in the 1970s through 3 remarkable innovators in the United States, led by Merton Root, suggested that insoles work by changing alignment. And although they stated in their research that this was a belief and that science would need to test it over the next 10 or so years, this became indoctrinated as a kind of belief or paradigm or a method of working for many people involved in foot care for many periods of time. So the general belief here is that somehow alignment was the problem and the reason why some feet hurt. And the belief was that insoles changed alignment. So were they right? Well, unfortunately not. And the reality is that insoles may change alignment, but it's not necessarily predictable. But they don't necessarily need to change alignment to try to help a patient's pain. So a breakthrough study in 2003 by Williams showed a group of runners who all had symptoms, and they had a treatment protocol that was designed to try to make their feet straight according to this fantastic theory. What happened? They didn't get better. What they then did was they concentrated on how much force was going through their body, and they changed their prescription up, giving them much stronger orthoses with much larger wedges, and those people all improved, but their alignment didn't change. And that's the key thing. Many of our patients coming into clinic, or many of us healthcare professionals, have been taught that pain and alignment are correlated in feet, and it's simply not true. There may be some things we don't yet know, but there is nothing to say that alignment and pain are directly correlated, except in a very small cohort of patients in very exceptional circumstances. So let's think about science and physics here, because when we're talking about how orthoses work, we now know, or I've just explained, how they don't work. They don't change alignment. The study of alignment is called kinematics. The study of force is called kinetics. Insoles work by changing the way forces go through feet and how feet react to them. There may be a psychosocial impact that has an impact on the outcomes of these patients, and that might be related to colour. There is certainly some indication that green is a healing colour, and it seems to give patients better outcomes with insoles than a traditionally plain coloured or a white or black colour. Also, we can't predict how a foot's going to react when it hits on an insole, so we can't necessarily describe that it's definitely going to change its alignment. But what we do know is certain design features change forces, and that has an impact on tissue, and we've got the science for that. So KinetiX as a trademark for TaylorMade is a recognition of all of those people in science who have proven unequivocally that insoles work by changing force. We're not trying to change alignment. We don't actually need to. But we do need to think about forces going through feet. Prefabricated insoles have been used in the treatment of the foot and ankle for many, many, many years. Those insoles often require customization. That can be done by the healthcare professional in clinic by adding wedges underneath the foot or in a small workshop, but some orthoses also come with wedge options available to them. An example of that would be an insole like Trio. Trio is TaylorMade's leading insole at the moment. Its design features have built into it a series of modifications that come with the device and a wedge which is built into the device here. Additional wedges are sold with the product which can be applied by the clinician to provide more correction as required. This type of modification, although practical and useful, leaves you with a device that ultimately has a load of wedges that aren't used and need to go away and be thrown away. TaylorMade's KinetiX range has been designed to try to provide clinicians with an immediate solution that requires minimal adjustment. Every design in the KinetiX range has 5 different combinations of wedge or corrective modification built into them, so the need for external wedges is not required. Although this can be done if required in your own lab, in our experience, this should not be required for the vast majority of patients. The KinetiX models are all available in 3 hardnesses: soft, medium, and firm. The darker the colour, the harder the material. Many professionals have chosen hardness for different reasons over the years. The vast majority of clinicians were previously taught that the hardness of their orthosis depended upon the activity of the patient or the patient's body weight. Research done by Kevin Kirby and colleagues subsequently has shown that there is perhaps a better way of determining how much force is required. The supination resistance test is recommended by ourselves here at TaylorMade as an appropriate way of trying to determine how much force is required from your orthosis in terms of hardness. The soft hardness is suitable for patients who have low supination resistance. So when performing the test, their arch will correct easily. The medium hardness is useful for people with an average or moderate supination resistance. These patients' arches do correct, but with effort. The firm hardness, the hardest KinetiX insole, is suitable for people who have a high supination resistance, and during the supination resistance test, their arch profile won't move very much, if at all. This is a far more reliable way of ensuring that our orthosis is comfortable for our patient and delivers the results that we want. So once you know the hardness, you need to pick your recipe. Which model do you need for your patient? Well, if you're an existing clinician with good confidence and knowledge, you can choose the device based on the wedge combination you would typically prescribe on a custom device. That's available in our wedge chart. Due to the unique nature of KinetiX's design and the research behind it, clinicians can choose their device if they have good knowledge and confidence by matching their wedge prescription to the wedges built into each KinetiX model. For those clinicians who lack confidence with biomechanics, we have created a pathology selection guide for adults and children's conditions that allow you to choose the most appropriate orthosis to deliver the forces required to address those conditions and their symptoms. Our pathology charts are unique to TaylorMade. They are developed based upon clinical research in terms of design implications, which affects the way those conditions are loaded. KinetiX orthoses change the load through tissues, and so it's important that we choose the right recipe so we deliver the correct amount of force to help our patients improve and recover. Please ensure you also use the supination resistance test to choose the correct hardness for your patient. What we want to make sure is that the orthosis is reliable in delivering the required outcome, and that combination of the right model with the right force pattern and the right hardness is essential in making sure your patient is comfortable. KinetiX Model A and AS are designed for adults and children. This orthosis is really high force. This is for patients who pronate quickly and pronate a lot. So the orthosis is required to generate a lot of force in order to slow the speed at which the foot pronates and the rate at which those tissues are loaded. The only difference between Model A and Model AS is Model A is full length, Model AS is 3/4 length. Model A is an orthosis which generates a large amount of supinatory force through the posterior of the device and through its arch profile. The device has an 8-degree wedge built into the heel, although it's very difficult to see because it's integrated into the mould, and a medial heel skive which tapers from the arch back into the device. This area here compresses tissues as the heel hits the ground, shifting the force from the ground medial, generating supinatory forces to resist the speed that the foot pronates. The anatomical contoured arch profile is there to provide a resilient, firm arch while still allowing the first ray to plantarflex as the forefoot is loaded, engaging the windlass mechanism and allowing effective propulsion off the device. This device does not have a forefoot wedge, but it does have an integrated heel raise, which is 2 millimeters thick. KinetiX A has large forces generated by the device medially. These forces are required when we have a foot which is pronating particularly quickly, so that we slow down the speed at which that foot pronates. Remember, orthoses cannot stop feet pronating. But these modifications here lend themselves to reducing the amount of strain and load going through tibialis posterior. They help to stabilize the arch for the foot that pronates quickly. They can be useful for the treatment of midfoot osteoarthritis, accessory naviculars, anterior knee pain, and conditions that are associated with a rapidly pronating foot, causing increased load and tension in structures. A word of caution with KinetiX A. KinetiX A has modifications on the medial aspect of the heel to generate significant force to control the speed at which a foot pronates. Therefore, patients with plantar heel pathology will have increased load through their plantar heel in this device, and therefore we do not recommend that you use an A for plantar fasciopathy, because this could make your patient worse, because it will compress those tissues under the heel. Whilst we're trying to offload them with terms of tension, we also don't want to necessarily increase the compressive force there. KinetiX B and BS are the next in the KinetiX range. These orthoses are available in full length for the B, 3/4 length for the BS, but they're available in children's and adult sizes. B is the most common custom prescription tailor-made custom ever saw. It has a medial heel wedge of 4 degrees. It does not have a skive into the medial arch of the device, and it has a really nicely shaped, anatomically profiled arch, allowing the first ray to plantarflex into the front of the shell. It does not have any forefoot wedge at all. This orthosis is entirely suitable for patients who are suffering with a number of pathologies as detailed in our pathology chart. The main reason for prescribing the KinetiX B is to deal with people who have issues with their foot pronating, where the structures of the arch are under increased tension and the forefoot is excessively loaded. Model BS is very useful for the treatment of Achilles tendinopathy. This model sits nicely into shoes and doesn't take up any space in the forefoot, but its 3/4 length design naturally gives you a slightly higher heel raise because the metatarsal heads are loaded in front of the device. Therefore, effectively, we're getting a little bit of heel lift to help reduce the tension in the Achilles tendon while our patient gets stronger and improves. KinetiX C is available for adolescents and adults at present. KinetiX C is a unique design. KinetiX C combines a number of different features which are prevalent in the published literature, but are quite unconventional in terms of orthotic prescription devices because they're quite new thinking. KinetiX C incorporates 2 opposing wedge combinations which are unusual in most orthoses, or for professionals who aren't quite up to date with this type of approach. There is a medial heel wedge in this device, but this device also has a lateral forefoot wedge. So the device is much thinner medially than it is laterally in the forefoot. Why have we done that? Well, when we think about a pronating foot and the issues that present to us clinically with a pronating foot, one of our key objectives in designing our orthosis is encouraging the first ray to plantar flex during propulsion. The windlass mechanism is incredibly important in creating stability so that our foot can effectively become a more rigid lever as we push off on every step. So, when our foot is on the device and we load the forefoot, the force under the first metatarsal effectively pushes the toe up from the MTP joint. The lateral forefoot wedge design shifts that force laterally, and by shifting that force laterally, the force dorsiflexing that first ray is reduced, and the contour of the orthosis allows the orthosis to facilitate first ray plantar flexion down for hypermobile first rays, making this device far more tolerant in the medial arch for patients who have a pronated foot, where typically you might want to use a B, whereas actually if you have this hypermobile medial column, you'd probably be better with a C, because you're going to get better forefoot stability and you're actually going to get much better control of that arch longitudinal sharing system. KinetiX D's design is unique. We have built into KinetiX D a medial forefoot wedge to work in conjunction with a medial heel skive and a 4-degree medial heel wedge. This device is entirely appropriate for patients who have a foot which pronates, but where we need to do something rather different and unique in the forefoot. So patients who have a fixed forefoot varus will do well in a KinetiX D, because the medial wedge effectively brings the ground up to that fixed inverted forefoot. The other patient group we recommend strongly for KinetiX D is for patients with medial tibial stress syndrome, where we have an orthosis which is typically only used for sport and running and is not used in the daytime. The medial forefoot wedge design for patients with medial tibial stress syndrome should only be used for running. And essentially, this design and wedge brings the ground reaction force medial relative to the tibia when our patient is running, reducing the bending moment which occurs in the tibia, which is believed to be one of the mechanical causes of medial tibial stress syndrome. This is the only prefab on the market which is recommended based on the science around what we understand in medial tibial stress syndrome. KinetiX Model E is available for children and also for adults. Its unique design has very different features to those seen in models A, B and D in particular. The core essence of the design of Model E is to try to generate forces laterally through the device. Model E incorporates a lateral forefoot wedge of 5 degrees. This device will support the arch through here but shift the weight laterally, reducing the load here, shifting the weight to here by essentially lifting the device laterally to increase the force through the outside of the foot, reducing the tension in these structures. Lateral forefoot wedges have also been shown to reduce the tensile strain in the plantar fascia by particularly shifting weight laterally for a first ray which dorsiflexes during propulsion. So again, when we're thinking about the treatments and the conditions that we can optimize patients with KinetiX E, we're dealing with plantar fasciopathy, peroneal tendinopathy, and lateral ankle instability. These conditions can all occur in the pronating foot, but we often see them in the supinating foot. So this device essentially is generating pronation moments, even though it has a 0-degree heel wedge, but it does have a slightly elevated lateral arch profile compared to the others in the range. This orthosis is easily accommodated into shoes, but is only available in full length. So how do we customize a KinetiX insole? Well, if you have your own laboratory and you have your own materials, you can rotate the insole underneath. This is black again. This is one of the final versions before we added the color of the green. You can add wedges underneath the device, and you can add a heel raise or even grind into the device. But typically the modification that's done the most is the modification where we want to add some type of addition to the surface of the device to change its shape. To customize a KinetiX insole with a metatarsal dome, you can use our micro grip fastening on the back. This is essentially a mushroom type Velcro. This allows the metatarsal dome to be applied in the required position onto the insole, and the micro grip locks into the microfiber top cover and is non-migratory. The only way to get this off is to take the pad and literally peel it off. We have a series of microgrip additions that are part of our additions range that work in conjunction with KinetiX insoles, allowing clinicians more freedom and choice with customization without the need for a workshop or for tools. TaylorMade have developed 3 education programs to support professionals when prescribing KinetiX insoles. The first program is around an hour in length and can be delivered online or face-to-face with teams. This program is to get experienced, confident clinicians familiar with the product range themselves so that they can prescribe the orthoses effectively. Course number 2 has been created for professionals who have some knowledge of prescribing foot orthoses but would like an update of the principles of biomechanics, simple examination techniques, and get more familiar with the insole range. The third education program is a whole day program for professionals who lack confidence or want an update in their biomechanical knowledge, assessment skills, knowledge of conditions, and prescription of devices. For more information, please contact us with the links at the end of this video. Thank you for your time, and we look forward to working with you.